We're going to talk now about going from graphs to equations. We've done some of this in class, and we're going to review a little bit of it and then get into a little bit of what we call the slope. Okay, first of all, let's look at this question. Do these points form a proportional relationship on a graph, okay? And here are the points. So the first thing you want to do is put them in a chart. Remember, the first one is your x, the second one is your y, so we can just chart it like that. Then you want to ask yourself, do x and y relate the same for each point, okay? Now I know we've talked about before, usually proportional relationships, they go through 0, 0, and they form a straight line. So this is going at it from a little bit of a different angle, and really using the word, what that word proportion really means. So remember, proportion means they have to relate to each other in the same manner. In other words, can they form proportions? Can these points here form proportions? That's the letter C. Can these form proportions? Do each of these relate? Is it the same way they relate for each point? So you can put it into, so yes, they both do, and we're going to see in just a minute. So I put it in two different kinds of proportions. You could go your x on top and your y on the bottom. So you go 2 here, and then the 8 there. Okay, and then that would be your first point. And then the second point, you put 4 on the top, because that's your x, and that's your 6, and then the y is your 16. Then again, you can always check this by either reducing them both to the same thing, or you can take the cross products. 2 times 16, is that the same as 8 times 4? Or what I thought to do is just go ahead and you can see that 2 times what is 4? Well, 2 times 2 is 4. So is 8 times 2 16? Yes. So those are proportion. So that's one way to set up. Another way to set up the proportion is just simply to go, okay, I'm going to get my first point on top and the second point on the bottom. So my x will be the first ratio, 2 to 4, just like this. Actually, you could just go like this. Make a proportion right there. That's probably the easiest way to do it, which is what I did here. And again, I just said, well, 2 times 4 is 8, and 4 times 4 is 16. Okay, and then you'd have to do then you could do the 4 and 16, and the 5 and 20, and you'll see that same thing. 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 4 is 20. So these do form a proportion, and they are proportional. And then if you were to graph it, you'd see that they did, which we didn't, I guess we did here at the very bottom. But before we get to that, let's talk about this. So what this really means is that, what do you do each time to x to get y? Well, we saw very clearly when we set the proportions up from the chart that 2 times 4 gave me 8, 4 times 4 gave me 16, 5 times 4 gave me 20. So every time I multiplied x by 4, I got my y. So that's the equation, y equals 4x. And remember, we talked about the unit rate being whenever x is 1. So if we were to take this one more up, I'll put it on top here. If x is 1, that's a thick 1. Say x is 1. What do you do to 1 to get y? Well, you multiply it by 4, so that would be 4. So that's your 1, y is 1, and x is 1, y is 4. So again, so if x is 1, y is 4, so 4 over 1, or just simply 4, is the unit rate. So we can surmise from that every equation you get from a proportional graph, it's going to be y equals whatever the unit rate is times your x value. So you just have to find the unit rate and you can get your equation. And there's a graph of it if you want to go ahead and check that out. Okay, so that covered a lot of things we've been talking about in class. Okay, the next thing is, so far, proportional relationships now they go through 0, 0, they form a straight line, they can be represented by the equation, what we just learned, we just talked about y equals a unit rate times x, and the points can be put into proportion, or they have a multiplicative relationship, which is the same thing as they're proportional, okay? So some of this gets scratched off. All right, any questions there? Or hopefully that you'll understand. If you have a question, write it down in your notes. Okay, so are these proportional? And I'm sorry that it got all scratched up, but one example is of bowling. And you have the number of bowling games that you bowl and how much it costs you. So is this, just by looking at it, does it go through the point 0, 0? No. So right away, if it's not any one of these, it can't be proportional. It'll be something we can talk about and we can relate. We'll be able to do different things with it, which you'll see. But right now, it's not a proportional relationship. Okay, supposing you read a certain number of weeks, you read a certain number of books. Here's your graph of that. Is that proportional? Well, it goes through 0, 0. That actually is supposed to be right at 0, 0. It's very hard to write graphs on this whiteboard. And it looks like it's a straight line. So yes, it is. So let's go ahead and chart it up. We do have 0, 0. We have if 1 week we've read 2 books, it looks like after 2 weeks we've read 4 books. Okay, so there it is. Now let's see about the equation. Well, the equation is going to be y equals the unit rate. The unit rate is when x is 1, so here we already have it. We don't have to figure it out. So the unit rate, so the equation is going to be y equals 2x, and the unit rate is 2 over 1, or you could just say 2. Okay? Next one. We have here number 4. Okay, you can either buy a yearly membership to Videos Plus Store or for $30 or pay $2.50 per video. If you buy the membership, you only pay $1 per video. Okay, so you want to graph and compare the two things. You want to make a chart of each situation and then graph it. For the membership, you have the videos, how many videos you're going to rent, and then the cost. Well, if you don't rent any videos for the whole month, is it a month? Year, whatever, for the whole year, you paid $30 for nothing. Okay? But if you rent one video, you paid $31 for that one movie. 2 videos, $32, and it goes on like that. On the other side, if you did it without the membership, if you didn't rent any videos, you didn't pay anything. If you rented one video, you paid $2.50. 2, $5, because every one is $2.50, so you just double it, and then triple it is $7.50. So you want to go ahead and just graph these. As best as I could, I did it here. You put the number of videos on the bottom. That's your X value. Remember, that's the one, the chart there. And that's your money. You could do it the other way around. It really wouldn't matter. But this is probably a little bit easier to think of it this way. Because first, I get the number of videos, and then I have to pay for it. So usually what goes first is here. And you just simply start, well, for no videos, I have to pay $30, and it goes up by 1. And this one is without the membership. So one video, I paid $2.50, which is probably somewhere in there, and then 2, I paid $5, and on like that. Which one's proportional? Well, clearly this one is. The unit rate was $2.50, and so the equation, I already have the one where it's x equals 1, so that $2.50 is our unit rate, and there's my equation, y equals 250x, okay, for that particular graph of that green line. All right, so now, let's go ahead and we're going to talk a little bit about the slant of a line. Okay, the unit rate so far can be also called the rate of change, how the line changes, how it goes, how it slants, as it describes the change that takes place between the ratios. Every time it's times 4, that's the change. Every time it's times 4, or times 2, or times a half. Okay, even though a line may not graph a proportional relationship, it still has a rate of change. Since it's a line, every line has got some kind of tilt to it, okay? Except for a line that has no tilt at all. We'll talk about that. Or a line that has 0 tilt, and we'll talk all about that later. But most lines that we know of, they have a slant. They have some kind, that's like a fairly medium slant. This is a really steep slant. That's like barely a slant, okay? We call that slant a slope, the slope of the line. The way you get the slope of the line, you figure out how far up and down it changed, and then how far, compared to how far over it changed. And you get that ratio, and that is called the slope. Okay, so for example, we're just going to do a couple of these. Then in class, we'll be able to really go more in depth and really do some fun problems with this, some fun exercises. Okay, so I'm just going to give you 2 lines here, and we're going to find the slope. So the first step is to try to find 2 points on the line. And I've got my 2 points right here. I've got 0, oh, that's 0, 3. How about that? So that's 0, 3, right? I go up 0, and I go over 0, and I go up 3. And this other one, let me make sure I got that one right. I went over 1, 2, 3, 4, and went up 4. So I'm not sure how I got 2, 4, but that's good. Good to go over it and check your mistakes. So there are my 2 points in the line. 0, 3, and I went over 1, 2, 3, 4, and I went up 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So when you go up, then what you want to do is start with the one that's more on the bottom end on the left side. Start with that point, and you go up. First of all, see how far you went up. Well, it looks like I just went up 1 point, one place to get to the horizontal line of where that other point is. Okay, so that's 1. So that's what's going to go on top of your slope ratio. And then you count how many have to go over to get to the actual point. Well, I had to go over 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that would go on the bottom. So this line has a slope of 1/4. Every time you went up one point, one number, you had to go over 4. And if you had to again, you'd go up 1, and you'd go over 1, 2, 3, 4, and you'd find a point on the line. Okay, let's do another one. Suppose we have to find the slope of this line. Okay, I found 2 points on it, so I went ahead and made sure I got those really good. So the first point, well, I didn't put the points here, but the first point here would be 2, 0. Looks like the second point here is 6, 4. Okay, so I take my 2, 0, and I go up. How far up do I have to go up to get to that point? Well, it looks like I had to go up 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, or 4 spaces there. So I had to go up 4, that'd be 4. And then I had to go over from 2 to 6, 1, 2, 3, 4 again. And that would just reduce to 1, or you put 1 over 1. Okay, we'll do lots more of these in class tomorrow.